Welcome, I'm Ijoma Honyato. Tonight, President Buhari steps up anti-corruption fight, signs instruments including agreements on the extradition of suspected treasury looters from the United Arab Emirates. Dangote Group signs a $450 million MOU with the Niger State government for an integrated sugarcane plantation and a sugar refinery plant in the state. Our big story tonight revisits the issue of oil theft and illegal refining operations in the Niger Delta and how the players carry out their trade. And North Korea accidentally reveals details of 2 untested missile systems in a press coverage of factory inspection by its leader, Kim Jong-un.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum signs Memorandum of Understanding with Bank of Industry on local content funding in the oil and gas sector.
And on sports news, Real Madrid striker Cristiano Ronaldo clinches UEFA's Player of the Year award for the 3rd time after beating Lionel Messi and Gianluigi Buffon to the prize.
And from Abuja, Arewa Youth Coalition withdraws its October 1st ultimatum to the Igbos resident in the north to leave the region.
We begin tonight with the president's moves to strengthen the fight against corruption with the signing of 4 treaties with the United Arab Emirates. The treaties are meant to seal the extradition deal he signed with the UAE government in January 2016. President Muhammadu Buhari also appended his signature on 4 other instruments of ratification that would strengthen the country's economy and security.
In a move to show his administration's determination to fight corruption, improve the economy and security, President Muhammadu Buhari settles down to sign key instruments. Four of the legal instruments are agreements reached with the United Arab Emirates in January 2016. They include agreement on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, mutual legal assistance in civil and commercial matters, an agreement on the transfer of sentenced persons and the extradition treaty. The president hopes that these agreements will reinvigorate the anti-corruption war, check illicit flow of funds, and improve national security.
Today's ceremony marks a very important milestone in our demonstration of sovereign capacity to fulfill our international obligations and take important steps for the benefit of our economy, security, and anti-corruption war within and outside Nigeria. It is my hope that these instruments, which are signed today, will reinvigorate the anti-corruption war and check the illicit flow of funds out of our country to other jurisdictions, improve national security, food security, boost our economic and tax regimes, and improve the overall well-being of our creative community.
President Buhari also signed other instruments of ratification on the Charter for the Lake Chad Basin between Nigeria, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Libya, Niger, and the Republic of Chad. Also, the African Tax Administration Forum Agreement on mutual assistance in tax matters, and World Intellectual Property Organization Performances and Phonograms Treaty.
We shall continue to explore all possible avenues for cooperation and collaboration with different segments of the international community in a manner that promotes our national interest and promotes global peace. And this is exactly what this ceremony is intended to signify.
Members of the diplomatic corps and some Federal Executive Council members witnessed the signing ceremony.
The UAE, especially Dubai, is one of the major destinations of wealthy Nigerians, including those who've been accused of various financial crimes. On January the 19th, 2016, the federal government signed a bilateral agreement with the United Arab Emirates to enable the extradition of corrupt officials hiding stolen funds in Dubai. Today, that deal has been reactivated and is probably an indication that President Muhammadu Buhari is indeed ready to walk the talk and fight corruption to the barest.
The deal with the United Arab Emirates is President Buhari's latest hardline stance in the fight against corruption, and he seems ready to take the fight head-on in order to fulfill one of his electoral promises to Nigerians. The implementation of the Treasury single account was President Buhari's first line of action for proper accountability and monitoring of government funds. The chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption, Professor Ishe Sage, claims that the TSA has saved Nigeria a total of 3 trillion naira.
That's an insult on this country.
The EFCC is a government agency helping the president to actualize his anti-corruption goals, but it has been kept busy lately with a leadership crisis holding back the confirmation of its chairman, Ibrahim Magu. And despite all that, the agency has recorded some setbacks and a few gains. At a point, it lost 4 major cases within 96 hours and suffered nationwide criticism over its approach to the prosecution of financial crimes offenders. But it recovered very fast, changing strategy and going for the head of the perceived fraudsters. Looted funds stashed in unsuspected places like the ones from a vault in Kaduna traced to a former NNPC chief and that of the Ikoyi building linked to the Director General of the NIA, amongst others, were all recovered by the agency. More recently, the agency has been on the trail of the former Petroleum Minister Desiani Alison Madueke, with numerous properties linked to her forfeited to the federal government through court orders. It is believed that the United Arab Emirates has been a major route of escape for looters of Nigeria's commonwealth. One case to remember, especially with the agreement reached with the UAE, is that of the former Delta State Governor, James Buhari, who escaped from Dubai when he was wanted both in Nigeria and the United Kingdom for financial crimes. He was eventually extradited from there to London, where he was subsequently jailed for money laundering.
It is my hope that these instruments which are signed today will reinvigorate the anti-corruption move.
There are hopes that this new deal will help the Buhari government achieve its set goals in the fight against corruption and restore Nigeria's battered image on the list of countries with the highest corruption index, provided the fight is done with clear intent and devoid of bias.
To discuss the fight against corruption and the treaties signed with the United Arab Emirates, I'm now being joined on the News at 10 by legal practitioner Mr. Wahab Shitu. Thanks for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's begin with the 4 treaties that were signed today already. It's being called a milestone event today. How significant is it for you?
Well, it is very, very significant because it demonstrates the commitment of this administration in concrete terms to fight corruption by conforming with international standards and best practices. Because when you want to fight corruption, there are certain key, indicators of seriousness. You must have mechanism in place for prevention, mechanism in place for criminalization and law enforcement, mechanism in place for international cooperation, mechanism in place for asset recovery, and mechanism in place for technical assistance and information exchange. Now, this particular treaty, the instrument signed by Mr. President today is very significant because it shows that this administration is totally committed to repatriation of our stolen assets, particularly those assets that are stashed away in United Arab Emirates. We all agree that most of these assets are our assets, hard earned Commonwealth as such a way in these countries. So now if you want to, if a country wants to get involved in mutual assistance legal treaties to repatriate these funds, the country can do so in about 4 ways. One is through multilateral treaty involving several countries. The other one is through a bilateral treaty involving 1 or 2 countries. And a country can also facilitate that through domestic legislation. And lastly, through the principle of reciprocity. Now, what the country has done here is to sign a formalized agreement between Nigeria and United Arab Emirates, under which there will be cooperation and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. There will be cooperation and mutual legal assistance in civil and commercial matters. And there will also be cooperation and mutual legal assistance in a return of sentenced persons.
Well, let me help you out there. Sentenced persons being returned, and then the extradition treaty. I was going to ask you whether that's the bite we actually need, the anti-graft agency actually needs to enter the territory like that. Yes,
because by virtue of that treaty, this bilateral treaty between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates, it imposes obligations on the 2 countries to respect obligations contained in those treaties with regards to the offenses covered under those treaties. By virtue of the principle of pacta sunt servanda, which means all agreements, all international agreements must be respected.
This is not the first time we've had some sort of agreement with the countries abroad, with the US, with the UK. What did you say to those who criticize Nigeria, saying that we do not always respect some of these treaties?
You must agree with me that this administration is committed. In terms of international goodwill, the international community trusts this government by virtue of the leadership, the moral authority of the president and the moral authority of the vice president, including the commitment, the advertised commitment of this regime to fighting the anti-corruption war. So it is not going to be business as usual. Nigeria under President Buhari is committed to total fight against corruption. And this has been demonstrated by the signing of these treaties today.
Let me draw your attention to the treaty, to the agreement on mutual legal assistance, which you spoke about earlier, in civil and commercial matters. There's another one in criminal matters. How exactly does it work?
Well, how it works is that it will allow cooperation between Nigeria and United Arab Emirates in the areas of investigation, in the areas of prosecution, and in the area of judicial proceedings. Which means in the area of investigation, by virtue of that, this treaty, we can have access to, financial records. I mean, Nigeria can have access to financial records in United Arab Emirates. They could also, by virtue of this, take advantage of, searching. They could obtain search warrants to search premises. They could seize properties by virtue of warrants, established in that. And they could also secure, collaboration with the judicial system, in the United Arab Emirates. And this is mutual. In the same way, United Arab Emirates also has some of these advantages to take advantage of it. They can also take advantage of these measures from Nigeria. So it's a bilateral thing, a mutual understanding between the 2 countries to cooperate in the area of investigation, in the area of prosecution, in the area of judicial assistance, in the area of confiscation, in the area of seizure of properties, and in the area of repatriation of stolen funds.
Good. Well, talking about repatriation of stolen funds, I was going to get to that, because one of the biggest criticisms you have is even when funds are returned, stash funds are found. We hear all the mind-boggling figures out there. Properties are confiscated. How does that help the average Nigerian? Where does the money go? And does it improve has it improved the life of anyone to hear billions have been recovered? Where does it go when it's recovered?
I think the major difference between this administration and previous administrations that has been in charge of this kind of exercise is the transparency and accountability that has been shown by this government. And that is why most of the funds that have been recovered are carefully documented. And then there are plans to plug back some of these resources into the developmental process of the country. So I think it is not going to be business as usual. These funds are being recovered in order to reinvigorate our economy. The president says so. And also enhance our national security interests. So I think the first thing we have to do is to, first thing first, we have to identify where these assets are. Take steps, legal steps to confiscate and get these assets returned back to Nigeria. And then when these assets, and then you see there are a lot of bills that have been, they are in the works. The Presidential Committee Against Anti-Corruption. They have several, bills in the works, bills to take care of asset management, bill to take care of some of these recovered assets. Right. So it is not going to be a case of these assets being recovered and then stolen. Right. It will be plowed back into our economy for developmental process.
Thank you so very much, legal practitioner Mr. Wahab Shitu, for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
And in part 2, after the break, group of former African presidents condemn lack of decisiveness and direction of the continent's leadership at a forum in Johannesburg, South Africa. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.